Hello and welcome everyone. Tidal is a global and rapidly expanding streaming platform. We're here today to offer something different. Now, we are proud to introduce you to the future of music.
The future of music. This is what Tidal was supposed to be. You might remember a lot of publicity surrounding it a few years ago, but recently it seems to have faded away. Owned by Jay-Z, it was supposed to be the next big thing in streaming, a service that paid artists what they deserved, where you could get the best sound quality. So what happened? Why didn't it take off? Let's have a look at why Tidal failed in its grand ambitions. Tidal wasn't actually founded by Jay-Z. He bought it in 2014 from a Norwegian company called Aspiro. After he bought it, a huge marketing campaign was launched to try and raise Tidal's profile. Many popular artists posted with the hashtag #TidalForAll on their social media accounts. And on March 30th, 2015, a press conference was held to promote Tidal to the mass market. Two things were emphasized that made Tidal different to its competitors like Spotify. The first is that Tidal is an artist-owned service. Many high-profile artists were at the press conference, including people like Madonna, Daft Punk, and of course Jay-Z. Some of the artists present were also announced to have a stake in Tidal's ownership. It was like a for artists, by artists kind of thing. They promised to address the issue of low streaming payments to artists. The amount of money artists get for streams is extremely low. Even though the amount can vary, Spotify tends to pay out roughly $0.004 per stream. This means that for every 1 million streams you get, Spotify would pay out roughly $4,000. This doesn't even account for record labels and management taking their cut, meaning the artists behind the music mightn't see much of that money at all. Tidal promised bigger payouts for streams, though they didn't specify how much at the press conference. It was also announced that Tidal would have 2 subscription plans available, the first of these being a standard $9.99 per month subscription, which gives access to the full Tidal music library at 320 kilobytes per second bitrate. Sound quality is generally described by its bitrate, which describes the amount of data or bits that can be processed per second. 320 kilobytes per second is generally considered decent sound quality, and was the standard for streaming at the time. This is also the highest streaming quality that Spotify offers. However, even though 320 kilobytes per second is pretty good, it's not as good as the sound quality on CDs. Tidal's second subscription plan addressed this problem. The second subscription plan was a high fidelity or a hi-fi plan for $19.99 per month, which offered lossless CD quality audio at 1411 kilobytes per second. So all of this sounds great. A service owned by artists that addresses low streaming payments and with higher sound quality than its competitors. So why didn't it take off? Well, the press conference is one of the most awkward, cringy things you'll ever see in your entire life. I'll link the full press conference down in the description. I had to watch this thing in segments, it's that bad.
Every great movement has been started by a few brave people who band together for a common cause. Madonna. Well, that is feeling like a graduation, a little bit like da, 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 right? But in actuality, it is a graduation, and that's a really powerful thing. For today, we announced the launch of Tidal, the first ever artist-owned global music and entertainment platform.
Tidal is supposed to be this streaming service that pays artists more for their streams, and everyone on stage is arguing they should be paid more for their music. But all of these people are also super successful millionaires, not struggling artists. It just didn't really add up, and it came off as a bunch of super rich people asking for even more money. After the press conference, Ben Gibbard, the lead vocalist for the band Death Cab for Cutie, criticized this approach, saying, "If I had been Jay-Z, I would have brought out 10 artists that were underground or independent and said, these are the people who are struggling to make a living in today's music industry." I think they totally blew it by bringing out a bunch of millionaires and billionaires and propping them up on stage and then having them all complain about not being paid. Jay-Z's approach to this issue did not go down well at all and contributed to Tidal not being an immediate success. The hi-fi price point of $19.99 was also criticized. Even though Tidal offered a $9.99 per month subscription with standard 320 kilobytes per second quality just like Spotify, the hi-fi tier was emphasized as one of the aspects that made the service different from Spotify. There are a number of problems with Tidal's approach to the more expensive tier. The first being that it overestimates how much the average music listener cares about a really good sound quality. Most people don't have the expensive headphones or speakers required to get the most out of the better sound quality, and even if they did, many people wouldn't notice the difference between 320 kilobytes per second and CD quality audio. There is a niche market of people who will notice the difference and will want the best audio quality possible, but this is a much smaller portion of people and not the mass market. Spotify also managed to dominate the streaming market because you can use it for free if you want to. The audio quality will be lower and you'll have ads between songs, but the option is still there. This strategy of allowing people to use the service for free and then making the ads just annoying enough to where you don't mind paying $9.99 a month worked really well for Spotify. Tidal couldn't use this strategy because you have to pay for the service, and because they were emphasizing the hi-fi tier, which is more expensive, all people saw was a subscription service that was super expensive, being marketed by super rich musicians asking for more money. Breaking into the streaming market is a very tough task, and Tidal completely shot itself in the foot with this awkward, badly handled press conference. Subscriber numbers were low and the service didn't take off.
Wow!
Fast forward to 2016. To try and boost subscriber numbers, Tidal's next strategy was to put albums on their service exclusively, that you couldn't stream anywhere else. One of the first and most prominent of these albums was Kanye West's The Life of Pablo, released on Tidal on the 14th of February 2016. Tidal initially didn't report the album's streaming numbers to the public, and this definitely isn't a good sign. If a company ever doesn't report how its product is doing, chances are it's probably doing badly. However, by the end of March 2016, Tidal reported that The Life of Pablo had been streamed 250 million times in its first 10 days of release, and that they now had 3 million subscribers. These numbers seem pretty good, especially for a smaller streaming service that's just started up. But these numbers aren't what they seem, and there's some strange manipulation going on behind the scenes. The Life of Pablo didn't stay a Tidal exclusive forever, despite Kanye claiming that it would never leave Tidal. The album was released on other services on April 1st of 2016, and it was only after its release on other services that Tidal reported its streaming numbers. In order to be eligible to chart on the Billboard 200 albums chart in the US, you have to report how well your album is doing to Nielsen Music. Since Tidal didn't report how well The Life of Pablo was doing for roughly its first 6 weeks of release, it didn't appear on the Billboard 200 at all during this time. This is likely because if they had reported the numbers, the album would have debuted very low on the Billboard 200 chart. It would be very embarrassing for both Kanye and Tidal if streaming numbers were so low that the album started at number 198 or something like that. Instead, they waited until a massive number of people on other streaming services were listening to the album, and then reported how well the album was doing, so that it went straight to number 1 on the Billboard 200. This is a clever tactic, but quite misleading, and the fact that they had to do this at all just shows that not many people were using Tidal. To add to this manipulation, in January of 2017, a Norwegian newspaper named Today's Business alleged that Tidal's claim of 3 million subscribers after The Life of Pablo's release was inflated by reactivating old accounts and including users on free trials. Furthermore, when Tidal released its monthly report to music labels in March of 2016, it stated it had 1.2 million activated accounts and 850,000 subscribers. This was the same month it claimed to the public it had reached 3 million subscribers. Tidal continued their strategy of releasing albums exclusively on their service. The most notable of these were Beyonce's Lemonade and Jay-Z's 444. Both of these albums were fairly successful, but in 2018 Tidal was accused once again by the same Norwegian newspaper of falsifying streaming numbers. This time they claimed to have conclusive evidence. They'd come into possession of a hard drive that contained billions of rows of internal Tidal data. The paper claimed that Beyonce's and Kanye West's listener numbers on Tidal have been manipulated to the tune of several 100 million false plays, which has generated massive royalty payouts at the expense of other artists. Tidal has claimed that The Life of Pablo was streamed 250 million times in 10 days and that they have 3 million subscribers. Well, this means that Tidal would need every single one of its 3 million subscribers to stream the album around 8 times a day for 10 days to make up the 250 million streams they were claiming the album had gotten. It's very important to note that Tidal's claim of 3 million subscribers is also very likely not true, and that the actual number is closer to 1 million. Therefore, it's more likely that every single one of its 1 million subscribers would need to stream the album 25 times a day for 10 days to make up the 250 million. This is extremely unlikely to have actually happened, and even on the surface looks quite questionable. Today's Business supported their claims with findings by the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, who agreed that through their analysis of the data on the hard drive that the streaming numbers had been intentionally manipulated. Despite releasing a statement denying all wrongdoing, Tidal said it would investigate how a data breach resulted in Today's Business obtaining the hard drive they got their data from. If Tidal is denying all wrongdoing, why would they investigate a data breach unless at least some of the data on the hard drive is true? It's clear that Tidal has developed a reputation for false claims regarding their subscriber and streaming numbers. Tidal also hasn't addressed the issue of subscriber numbers since its claim of having reached 3 million subscribers in March 2016. The service's emphasis on high fidelity, album exclusives, and higher royalty payments for artists has also failed to catch on with consumers. So what's Tidal like right now in 2020? Since their exclusive album strategy failed, they've mostly focused on improving the service itself. I've actually been using Tidal since mid-2017 because it was the only service that had hi-fi quality, and at the time you could only stream Jay-Z's albums on Tidal. Back in 2017, the user interface for both the mobile app and the desktop app wasn't very good. Both apps were also really buggy, especially on the desktop. I remember sometimes I'd click on a song to play it, and instead of playing it would just load indefinitely, and you'd have to close down the app and open it again to get it to work. Literally the most basic thing you'd expect from a streaming app, playing songs, didn't always work. Back then, the desktop app looked more like something you'd see during the 2000s, back in the Windows 7 days. But since those bad times, the service has improved a lot. Both the desktop app and the mobile app are a lot more intuitive than they once were, and feel a lot smoother to use in 2020. One thing Tidal used to severely lack was the personalization that Spotify is known so well for. Daily mixes, social media integration, and even recommended tracks were either completely absent on Tidal or not very well implemented, but since then they have implemented these features. The service is particularly good for keeping up with new music. On the homepage, recently released tracks that the service thinks you'll like are recommended to you, and there's also a Releasing Tomorrow section, highlighting artists planning to drop music the following day. Overall, it's a very good streaming service now in 2020, but the time for Tidal to be one of the biggest streaming services has definitely passed. It's cool as a service that appeals to a niche market of hi-fi listeners, but it has ultimately failed in its ambitions to be a hugely successful service that solves the problems of low streaming payments for artists.